So we'll call this to order at 4:30. And maybe everybody can go to page 13 in your packet.
Take my computer.
You have your board expiration dates. And we'll just go down that list, roll call your name so we're not stepping all over each other.
Nice.
And is Ben, can you start? Is Ben on?
Ben is not here.
Okay, I'll start. Tom Keequam here.
James Allen
Yeah.
here.
Wait a minute.
Sajid Chaudhry here.
Rick Byers here.
Cheryl Hunter here.
Marty Fig
Robert
here.
Bacon. Robert
Sorry,
Bacon
Robert.
here. Yep, no problem.
Okay. Seeing all enough for a quorum, let's begin with approval of tonight's agenda.
I'd like to acknowledge the work that Rodney Nanny has done and continues with on the planned economic development list and the public infrastructure improvements program in the agenda, and the timely nature that work to help guide our development of the TIF plans for the west and east DDAs. And with that, I move to approve the agenda for August 2020.
Support.
I second it.
Motion by Marty, support by Sargent.
Sajid.
All in favor of approving tonight's agenda, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Tonight's agenda is approved. Moving on to item number 4, approval of regular meeting minutes of July 21st, 2020.
So moved. Move to support.
Rick,
Second it.
Yes.
Sajid.
motion by Rick, support by Chowdhury to approve the July 21st meeting minutes. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Hearing no opposition, motion carried, minutes are approved. Going on to agenda item number 5, presentations. Seeing none on the agenda, we'll go to item 6, public comment.
Do not have any public in attendance tonight.
Okay, let's move on to 7, report. Somebody want to walk through accounts payable?
Hello, everyone. I'll help you with the accounts payable and the financials tonight. I'll start with the East DDA checks, accounts payable. We have $1,745 to Be Green Lawn Services. This is for fertilizer and like a Weed Be Gone type application out there on Pickard Corridor. And we also have the $5,000 annual contribution for community promotion that you all approved last month to the Mount Pleasant Area Convention Visitors Bureau. And then we have some service to the sprinklers, to Keelan turf irrigation for $1,349. And we have some lawn mowing payments to Wilson Lawn Care totaling, that's for May and June, those total $2,000. And we also have a payment to Yo and Yo CPA firm for the audit presentation that they did back in June. That payment's $300 from the East EDA. And so we have a total of $10,394.81 coming from the East EDA checking account. Are there any questions on that?
What'd you do with the consumers' bills?
They'll be paid. They'll be paid on time, but they haven't been paid yet.
Okay, they haven't been put in the system yet then.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, I wasn't worried about them not getting paid. I was just curious why they weren't on the roster, so.
Right. Sometimes it's just a timing issue.
Any more questions? If not, can I get a motion to approve the East EDA payables?
So moved.
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Moved
support.
by Jim. Moved by Jim, support by Cheryl.
Yes.
All in favor of approving the East EDA payables, say aye.
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 Opposed, same. Motion's carried. Payables are approved. We go on to the next one.
Okay, moving on to the West DDA payments, we have a $5,000 payment going to the Mount Pleasant Area Convention and Visitors Bureau that was approved at the meeting last month. And we also have a $300 payment to Yo and Yo CPA firm for the audit presentation back in June. And the total accounts payables for the West DDA is $5,300 this month.
Make a motion to approve the West DDA bills as presented.
Support.
Was that Rick?
Yes, it was.
Motion by Zala, support by Bars. All in favor of approving the West DDA payables, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. And motion's carried. So please continue.
Okay, so moving on to the revenue and expenditure report for the East DDA. You'll see that all the revenues are booked there. We did have a little bit more interest that was booked in that area. So it didn't change much from last month, but there is some additional interest posted. The revenues are at 89% of the original budget right now. And then in the expenditure area, you'll notice that the expenditures are currently at 45% of the budgeted amounts. And I just want to note that the Board of Trustees did approve your budget amendment that you recommended to them on August 12th. That is posted in August, but these reports don't reflect that yet because these are July reports. So you'll see your budget amendments next month. You'll see that those are posted on the August report. And so moving on to the West EDA, I should ask, do you have any questions on East EDA revenues or expenditures?
Sherry, on the state aid revenue, have you heard, obviously with the budget hole with the COVID, caused by the COVID, have you heard any rumblings about that state aid being in jeopardy or not?
Not yet. I watch all of the state's webinars. I just watched one last week, but it was more related to revenue sharing. It didn't have anything to do with this payment. And I did, I filed the form in June. I did hear from the state. They asked me a couple questions on the form. That's normal. They normally ask me some questions, and then after I answer the questions, they normally pay it. So
Okay, nope, but that's, just wondered if it was on the chopping block potentially. Thank you.
yeah. Are there any other questions? Okay, I'll move on to the West DDA. Again, you'll see that the revenues are close to the same. There's a little bit of interest income added there for the month of July. And then in the expenditure area, you basically see the changes for the amount of the accounts payable that you approved tonight. Those are posted there. And any budget amendments will show up next month on next month's report. Are there any questions in the West DDA? Okay, if not, I'll just move on to the balance sheet. For the East DDA fund, you'll note that we have, the East DDA has more than $1.6 million in cash that can be spent on projects in the coming months, years. And then moving on to the West DDA fund, you can see that the West DDA fund has about 1.2 million in cash that can be spent in the future months and years. And that's all I have for tonight. Are there any questions on the balance sheets?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's let the record show the financial statements were presented and filed. Item 7C, the board member expiration matrix. For your review, moving on to item 8, new business. You wanna take it away, Rodney?
Well, thank you. This is my mea culpa request. I unfortunately let the deadline for we set 2 informational meetings that are required by the state law, basically to notify the taxing jurisdictions that are involved, in this case primarily the county, give them an opportunity to come in and learn what the EDA is doing. We set 2 meetings up, one of which was supposed to be next week. And unfortunately, I inadvertently let the timing pass by to get the notice to the county and out to the public of the August 25th informational meeting. So I apologize for that. I'm going to have to ask that we postpone that meeting and reschedule it. The September meeting that is also on our calendar, September 26th, that informational meeting is fine, and we'll proceed with that one as planned. But we'll need to set a second one before the year runs out, because we have to have 2 each calendar year. So I've given you 4 dates that are possibilities on the township's calendar. This would be a Zoom meeting like this one. Unless there's a preference for a different time, I would suggest the 4:30 start time. That seems to work best. for the board members. But if you would, I would ask you to take an action to revise your annual meeting schedule and postpone the August 25th date and schedule a new date based on one of these 4 items here for our second information meeting.
Rodney, how long do you think your project selection or process is going to last? Or when will we have? I think it would be helpful after we get that process and agree to some priorities on some projects to have a meeting there, because we'd actually have something to share.
Are you talking about how long today, or?
No, certainly not today. Just, I mean, do you think we'll be done by the end of October with the process you laid out, or?
Oh, in terms of the project lists, you know, if the board members are happy with what's in the request for board action, you can take action today. I mean, this is really a first step. And obviously we're ahead of ourselves a little bit agenda, but the project lists for the East EDA and the West EDA districts are really part of setting up a long-term plan. I guess let's call it a capital improvements program for each of the districts, with some things coming up obviously in the near term and other things planned for future years. It is also the first step potentially in updating the East EDA and West EDA development plans, because we would want to incorporate these projects into those updated plans. And so when we get to those agenda items, we need to talk about them. The project list, this immediate request for board action, certainly you could take action tonight if you wished to confirm that you're happy with the priorities that are in there, or if you want to make any changes to it. That's entirely up to the board.
Yeah. All right, that answers my question. So just a comment that generally days in November is tough to get a lot of, there's a lot of members that will be unavailable. And so.
Yeah. I appreciate that heads up.
But anyway, yeah, nothing new there. So, okay, but you're going to send out a doodle then, or do you want to take action on it tonight and decide right now?
Well, again, in terms of the scheduling a new meeting date, we have 4 dates open that we included in the request for board action. That's October 27th, November 9th, November 24th, or December 2nd. If there's a preference, we can also do it by a doodle poll if you prefer. We will need an action to postpone the August 25th meeting at the very least. But if you're comfortable setting a new date, that would be helpful to get that done, and so we can get it on the calendar.
Hi, Rodney. Tom here. I'm thinking I'd like to try to do this right now. I mean, in my mind, you get into November, deer season, then you get into December. That's getting the holiday, Thanksgiving. I'd rather try to see us do it Tuesday, October 27th.
I'll second that.
I would agree with that too.
Can the chair make a motion?
No, so I'm saying you.
Then I'll move that we postpone the September 22nd meeting and have the meeting reschedule it to Tuesday, October 27th, 2020. At 4 p.m.
You adjust the motion to say the August 25th meeting postponed.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. The August 25th. We're going to have the 20. Yep. I'm sorry. Yes. Amend that to the August 25th, 2020 meeting. Postpone it to Tuesday, October 27th, 2020. At 4:30.
Second.
October
Second.
22nd?
27th.
Okay.
My diction isn't very good. Sorry.
Right.
Motion by Zaled, support by Fig. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion's carried. Thank you.
You.
And both these will be at 4:30.
4:30, that's correct.
Right.
Let's move on to 8B.
Okay, this one is an interesting request. This comes out of our work to prepare the annual report that is required for the Economic Development Authority's activities. Sherry Teal noticed this first, that we have deadlines coming up related to our East EDA and West EDA tax increment financing plans. As she noted, they are both set to expire at the end of December of 2021, next year. The reason for an expiration is in the state law. The state law basically requires a duration period for capturing tax revenue from other taxing jurisdictions be identified in that plan. So both plans have that same duration period ending on 12/31 of 2021. With that in mind, if we don't do anything, basically our ability to capture tax revenues will end next year. And at that point, we'll be simply wrapping up the activities of the two DDA districts with the idea of closing the districts down when the revenues have been spent down and the project's completed. That's obviously not the best approach. There's certainly much more that can be done in both districts. Obviously, on our agenda tonight, we're going to be talking about additional projects. And that would require us to update and for the Township Board ultimately to adopt updated development plans and tax increment financing plans for each of the DDA districts. That is not something that we can do in-house, and certainly staff will be a part of that, but we'd be looking for some expertise to help assist the EDA in putting these updates together. And with that in mind, we've made a request for your authorization to send out a request for qualifications to a number of consulting firms that specialize in this area in putting these types of plans together. This is not a request for proposals as we've formulated it, but rather a request basically for firms to provide their credentials to the EDA for consideration. This is a request for qualifications is a process that I think will give us a better selection of firms, because it's much easier for the firms to put together the qualifications. Often they have that already on the shelf, and they can simply provide that to us, those details, example projects, clients, resumes of employees and their expertise, that sort of thing. It is far more time consuming to put together a detailed proposal. And so some firms may choose not to do that, even though they might be interested in the work. They may choose not to put together the proposal if they feel like they may be competing against a large number of other firms. By doing requests for qualifications first, we can narrow down the field, identify perhaps 2 or 3 firms we feel would be the best choices, and then invite them to submit detailed proposals for your consideration. So if you're in agreement, if you're comfortable with that approach, we'd like to ask for your authorization to proceed to prepare and distribute a request for firms to submit their qualifications to assist the EDA and staff with preparing up these updated plans.
Rodney, if we have accept the idea for the qualifications, did you have a deadline in mind of when they would be submitted by?
I'd like to actually bring them back to you in September. That would be my goal. And because these qualification documents are typically easily put together by the firms, we should be able to give them a relatively short deadline. Have them in hand in time for your September meeting. If not, if we find that we're just not getting a response, then we look at the October meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Rodney, and Tom, help me out with memory. It's my understanding the West EDA preceded by several years, or the East EDA preceded the West EDA in formation. Is that right, Tom?
I'm not sure because I was only on the East DDA then, so I didn't know what was going on with the West.
Yeah, I think but anyway, it was my recollection that the EDA board has already, that the deadline for extending the East EDA ordinance, that we did that a few years ago. Does that sound right, Tom, or any other members that were on the board?
You did actually. I believe the East EDA was extended in 2011. I think there was an amendment that was made then, but it was only extended for 10 years.
Okay, so that's, okay, that answers my question.
Yep.
And then that's why they're synced up. So, okay, nope, thank you.
Well, this sounds like something we need to get going sooner than later.
We're gonna be out of jobs.
So, I mean, I totally agree with Rodney. And Rodney, I did hand out to the board, like the Michigan's quality-based selection guidelines, or I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
I've heard of it. I've not seen it, but I've heard of it.
It's really slick. So I'm completely in agreement with you with your RFQ process.
Good.
Do we have any more questions on this request for board action? And also, what's this note about the Scrivener error?
I didn't turn the page on my own request. Thank you for bringing that up. One of the other items that came out of our annual report process, and this also was raised initially by Sherry Teal, was that we had an odd discrepancy between the tax increment financing plan duration date for the West EDA and the date that was in the ordinance that adopted that plan. What happens with these is that the plan is prepared and ultimately you take action to adopt it and recommend it on to the Board of Trustees. They have final authority to adopt these documents and plans, and they do that by ordinance under the law. And so in the 1991 ordinance that adopted the West DDA development plan and tax increment financing plan, the last set of amendments, had an error in the date. While the plan says 2021, the ordinance says December of 2020 as the expiration date. After reviewing it, looking at the history, the township attorney came to the conclusion, that same conclusion I did, that it appears to have been what the attorney calls a Scrivener's error, a typographical error in the ordinance. And so we're going to take steps to amend that 1991 ordinance to correct the error and have it match up to the 2021 date. And that'll be going before the Board of Trustees in September.
Yeah.
Is there any more questions on this request for EDA board action?
There's no reason to think that won't be amended or changed to 2021.
I would assume not. I mean, it truly does appear to have been a typographical error. And the attorney, after reviewing it, looking at the law, felt it was best handled by amending the ordinance. Obviously, the Board of Trustees makes those decisions, but I would expect that they would be comfortable with taking that step.
Bacon here. I will make a motion. We authorize the Community and Economic Development Director to prepare and distribute requests from consulting firms to submit their qualifications to help staff process and prepare adopting updated tax increment financing plans for the East and West DDA authorities.
Motion by Bacon. There's support.
By me. Chaudhary.
Support by Chowdhury. Any more questions?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. And motion's carried. Thank you. You want to take us on to our next one, Rodney?
I can. So back in May, we reviewed a long list of potential projects that the EDA could be doing in the future. We had a list of current projects that you're working on, and we also had a list of potential future projects that could be developed or done in either district or both. I appreciate everybody that responded to our request to evaluate those projects and put some initial priorities on them. We did get a good number of responses back. And so what you have before you tonight, we divided it into a list for the East EDA and a separate list that we'll look at next for the West EDA. So what you have before you tonight is a request for board action related to the East DDA district. We included the updated list of projects, and you'll see if you look on page 20 of your packet, where it starts the list of proposed East EDA district projects. There are two columns there. The first column is the results of your prioritization efforts. So you'll see in that first project the number 1.57. This is on a 1 to 5 scale, with 1 being the highest priority and 5 being the lowest priority. This 1.57 was the average of 7 responses we received. The bracketed numbers there represent the range of responses. So all the responses were between 1 and 3. And of course, then there were 7 responses. The far right column of staff recommendation, and that's basically just to identify where this project might fall in terms of a fiscal year priority to move forward with it. The projects themselves are more or less organized by level of importance. So here, project A, we identified as I would say the most important project for the next fiscal year. Certainly not the only, but it's very important. This is we talked about before about mapping the underground electrical utility, street lighting system, and also mapping the underground irrigation system. This item has been updated to include the irrigation system, and it's also been updated to identify what would be needed for that. We have looked further at the MISTIG system. I know this was a discussion item last time about can we do this informally. I do receive the MISTIG emails that go out, but there really is not a way to informally let the contractors know that we have underground resources there in a way that can protect them and protect the township. The MISTIG system, the way the law works, if we are a member of the system and our infrastructure is mapped in their system, and if somebody breaks something when they're digging, they are responsible to fix it. But if we're not a member of their system, then it doesn't matter if we tell the contractor that stuff is there. If they break it, it's still our responsibility to fix it.
I'll just stop you there. We've had this discussion before. That is not really the way the system works. Basically, the utilities, I agree with the GIS system and the maps. We definitely need to do that. We could, one option would be, and it'd be a little more work on your part, is, and I've talked to Randy Shar at Keelan, he would said, and we'd have to pay him, but we're gonna have to pay somebody to mark them. If you wanted to let Randy know, hey, there's a project out there on Pickard Road, please, you know, between Isabella and wherever that I got a ticket, can you go out and mark the utilities? Randy said they would be happy to do that. That's not the long-term solution. But if we switch over, the responsibility is because we're the utility owner, whoever the utility owner has to mark the lines. And if they're part of MISDIG, they get the notification that contractors are going to dig in the area. Then it's up to the utility to mark those lines. Being part of MISDIG does not transfer all the liability. We still have to transfer all the liability to the contractor. We are still responsible for marking that utility within 30 inches. If we don't mark it, it gets damaged, the contractor is not responsible. If we mark it within the 30 inches that the MISDIG law requires and it's damaged, then we can bill, we can back charge the contractor. But just having a map in place doesn't, and again, it's going to be up to us because I don't think MISDIG submits their maps. All they're doing is notifying which utilities. And I talked with USIC, which is a contractor locating service here a week ago, and about just the process, and they would be happy. They do the mapping for the street lighting. He estimated about $6,000 to do the mapping, and probably $2,500 a year plus $25 a ticket to do the marking. So whether that's a good deal or not, but the description is a little not quite right as far as the contractor responsibility. So I don't want the board to be misled that, hey, all we got to do is make a map and give it to MISDIG and we're good. That's not the way the system works. So.
Would that relieve us of the responsibility, Jim?
If we contracted, and I'm just gonna not advocating this, but the USIC locator locates consumers, gas and electric, they locate Frontier, and they locate Charter lines. So they have a locator who is already marking those lines when when I call in a MISDIG ticket to work somewhere in Isabella County. So they would be a logical choice to have us mark the street lights and or the irrigation, and then it's automatic, then we don't have anything to do other than write a check to USIC. But then that protects our utilities if they're marked properly and they're damaged. And the other reason this is a timely project is I think they keep pushing it back, but I think it's 2023 that they're going to completely redo Pickard.
That is correct. That's the timing.
So we definitely want to have something in place because we'll be paying a lot of money because none of that stuff is going to be in place when they're done.
Right. Yeah. Actually, item number 4 in that project item on page 20 of your packet is talking about contracting for the very services that Jim is referring to for marking and flagging those lines on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, and I'm sorry about the minutia, other than I just deal with it, and but I wholeheartedly support the project. I think it's long overdue. Whether we contract with Teelan to mark the irrigation or do the mapping, but I did ask USIC, who is utilized by other utilities in the area, so they already have a person in the area, and they do provide that as a service to map the utilities, and they will do the marking for us. So just a matter of payment.
So I'm happy to answer questions about any of these projects. I just want to hit a couple of other highlights, and then, as I said, we can talk about any of these items that are on here. on page 21 of your packet, there are two projects I label Project B, B1 and B2, and that's the development plan, tax increment financing plan updates that we've already just talked about. So these are new on the list. We've put some estimated kind of cost range potential there. We'll have to see where bids come in ultimately. With regards to the East EDA, one item that just want to bring to your attention as that's included in here is a proposal to potentially expand the East EDA district. There's the neighborhood that's basically south side of Pickard Road, east of Isabella, between Isabella and the expressway. A portion of that neighborhood is in the DDA district. It is a neighborhood that I think could benefit significantly. It's a neighborhood that includes both some commercial and office, but also residential. It's a neighborhood that I think could benefit from targeted funding for some improvements, capital improvements, similar to what we've done on some of the other neighborhood streets in the East EDA district. So that's a proposal that would potentially be incorporated into any updated development plan, would be to expand those boundaries to include the full neighborhood there. Some of the other projects, Project C was, I think, the other very high on the priority list, which is basically extending water and sanitary sewer lines on South Somerton Road. This is south of Pickard Road. And this is truly an economic development project. This is an area where we have an industrial park. There's land, underutilized land along the Somerton frontage on the edge of the park, industrial park area. So it's an opportunity where we might be able to see some new employment center type activity, new business growth, if we have utilities there. Right now, there are no utilities, especially no sanitary sewer along that stretch of road. Those are just a couple of highlights that I want to mention. I'm happy to answer any questions about this request. It is certainly subject to any changes or additions or subtractions that you'd like to make to it. This was our best take on it to start with, based on your prioritization. But it cannot absolutely be altered from here.
Rodney?
I think Cheryl had her hand up first.
Yes, when you said that there might be a new additional area, does that include Isabella Grass Corner?
It does not. No, it does not go down that far. I wish it could. And I mean, it's certainly something that we can look at. That DDA boundaries, we have to be careful in terms of where we extend. There are certain criteria that have to be followed. And I'd be a little concerned the bluegrass area is essentially too far away. But we can certainly look at it. I would love to see the DDA include that area.
I'm still working on that because that's a very important area. There's density there of people living, low income housing, student housing, 55 and older housing, and a lot of businesses. So I keep on trying to find some way to get sidewalks and lighting in that area. So that's just my take on this.
Yeah,
thank you.
I appreciate it. I was just having a conversation today with a developer about sidewalks and putting kind of strong arming him a bit to get a sidewalk installed further than he wants to do. So it is something we're definitely watching.
I keep on trying. Not going to give up.
Yep.
Rodney?
Yes, sir.
On item 4, we're talking about the expansion of that district. But then this includes an establishment of a development area citizens council. What would that be?
That whenever you have a certain number of residents within your DDA boundaries, the law now requires that you have a citizens council that of residents that live in the DDA district to essentially serve as advisors to you as the Economic Development Authority. If we brought this neighborhood in, we would definitely be over the point where we would need to have the Citizens Council. They would typically meet a number of times per year and essentially make recommendations to you related to the residential side of the DDA district. Where it might be beneficial is, in particular for this neighborhood, is that this neighborhood is actually made up of several distinct subdivisions. They're older. It's older housing. Quite frankly, it's older residents in large part, and so having a bit more organization might actually help this neighborhood improve themselves too, in terms of coming up with projects, but also coming up potentially with other improvements that they are interested in pursuing. Similar to what a homeowners association might do for a newer development.
Come in.
Then with the, if we expand those areas, are we eligible then for more recapture from those areas if there's new development?
Yes, if basically if you expand your development area, you would be capturing tax revenue within that area for any new activity. Yes.
Of new activity. What is our recapture rate over there right now again? Do you know?
That is not a question I can answer right offhand. I'm not sure if Sherry can.
Yeah, Sherry, the question I have is, do you know what the recapture rate is for the EDA?
Sherry's muted at the moment. She's
Okay, I'm unmuting.
Oh,
Say it's close to 100%
really?
between the base value and the current taxable value.
Okay. That's my only question.
Other questions or comments or thoughts on the project?
Just one question on extending the districts is, I thought that the TIFA are kind of not very popular down in Lansing. Is that something you think you can pull off?
Well, that is a good question, and it's something that we would be looking at. Quite frankly, we would be looking at our whatever consultant we do bring in to be looking at that question in more detail. The key really is to meet the standards of the Act in terms of the conditions related to the property values and deterioration, all the language of the Act basically. That if the area meets that criteria, then we could expand to include it. In this case, I think we certainly could. As I said, it's a neighborhood that could use a hand. It could use some targeted funds. And I believe that if we did target some funds into this neighborhood, it would have a very significant positive impact long term. As I said, it's an area that's aging and would benefit, I think, from similar types of improvements as we've done on the other neighborhoods in the district already.
Okay, thank you. Then the last question would be is you just make a motion to accept the goals or the motion as presented, and then it's not carved in stone. We're obviously going to have to approve each project individually. So is there just, what do you need from the board, I guess?
So we have on the request for board action, it's listed as to approve the list of planned economic development and public infrastructure improvement projects in the East EDA district for funding during the 2021 to 2024 fiscal years. And yes, this is really just the first step. It's just simply saying these are the projects we want to do. All of them would be subject to budget approval and individual project approval as we move forward.
And we certainly can add other projects going down the road.
Absolutely. Let's call it the first run at it. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I don't have a problem with making the motion to approve the list of planned economic development and public infrastructure improvement projects in the East EDA for the funding during 2021 to 2024 fiscal years as presented.
I can second that.
Bacon here with a comment. I'm really in favor of the Somerton Road. I'm not sure about, I also have concerns that we're not going to be able to expand the DDA district. That doesn't sound like anything that's going to possibly, I mean, we can try, but I don't, I'm with Jim that I don't think they're probably going to like that idea. But I really do like the Somerton project. I live in this district that you're talking about. I look at Home Depot right outside my window, so I'd like to see it happen, but I have my doubts, but I guess it doesn't matter. We can try.
Yeah.
And that's just my comment.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Jim, supported by Cheryl, to approve the request for EDA board action. Do we have any more questions or comments?
I think it's a start on some good projects.
Yeah.
I agree. It's a good soft pass. So calling the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. And motion's carried. Thank you.
We have a similar list for the West DDA is our next item on the agenda. I did notice on page 28, which is the start of that project list, that there's a typo. It said the project A1 says update the West DDA development plan and expand the district. That's just, I forget, I was carrying it over from the East DDA and didn't delete that. No proposal to expand the West DDA district boundaries. But here again, we have, just to highlight a few projects, we have project A1 and A2, that's the updating those plans. Item B there, which was the most popular, or almost one of the most popular items in terms of the responses you made, was stormwater management improvements. That's certainly, I think, an ongoing challenge in the West EDA, and looking at that from a regional perspective, and perhaps coming up with some kind of a regional stormwater management solution, I think has some real value to consider for the future for developing land on the West EDA, within the West EDA district. Just a couple other highlights. Project D, new recreation area along the Chippewa River. This has been in the West EDA development plan since the beginning. It happens that a project is underway right now, kind of a regional planning project that the township is participating in as help fund it, to develop an updated master plan for the Chippewa River, basically looking at public access, looking at recreation opportunities, and potential for identifying sites for new public facilities along the Chippewa River. So that long-term planning project is just getting started. So we'll see where that goes. But the idea of perhaps participating in the creation of a new recreational area along the Chippewa River, I think has some good merit for the West EDA in future fiscal years.
I know you mentioned it was a typo, Rodney, but has there ever been a consideration for expanding the West DDA? As long as you're looking at the possibility of expanding the East.
It didn't come up. Is there something particularly?
I just know that the road right away continues down Lincoln Road and covers the intersection Broomfield, I believe. And I didn't know if that would be something to consider or look at as a expansion in the long term.
It's certainly something that we can look at. Yeah, the West EDA boundaries were kind of fascinating to me with the run along inside the road right of way. I thought that was a very ingenious solution to be able to provide what really needed to be done for the West EDA. I think that we can certainly explore it, and the good question again becomes, will the expansion meet the criteria in the state act and that would really we'll have to look at in detail for a particular site or area
Okay,
that we're looking at.
great, thank you.
Rodney, one question on G, says work with the road commission, extend basically sidewalk, walking paths or sidewalks from Broomfield to McDonald Park. Now, aren't we doing Lincoln Road from High Street to McDonald Park now? Isn't that on the agenda?
We have in terms of sidewalks.
Yes.
We have our row engineering, our engineering firm is currently doing the prep work for a sidewalk construction project just to get the sidewalk from the Lux Funeral Home to McDonald Park in the Township Hall. So it's just that short stretch. Yeah,
not all the way
down. No.
Okay, and I'm assuming that when Lincoln Road gets completed, the new Lincoln by the bridge and all that, and when we do when we do south and north both, there would be room on the side of there for either bike path or walking path. I mean, just as part of the road. That's an assumption.
Right. Yeah, I know that the County Road Commission has a need to acquire some additional right-of-way in certain spots. I don't know how much right-of-way they're acquiring. So in some cases, we may still have to get a separate easement, but
okay.
Yeah.
It's
The one thing that doing that project, if you have curb and gutter, like in the section that they did, it's a lot easier because all you got to do is just fill in a little bit 5 feet behind the curb, and you got a place to put a walk. And if you go north of 20, where you've got a county ditch, to try to put a sidewalk where there's an existing ditch is awful tough and expensive, because you still have to figure out what to do with the drainage off the roadway.
Right.
yeah.
But so to answer your question is yes, Rick, that they're if they where they put in curb and gutter, it will be a lot easier and a lot cheaper to dovetail sidewalk, whether we want to pay for it on top of the project while they're doing it, or the road commission puts it in the project, depending on the funding and everything. But yes, that we definitely want that to happen. So while there's construction in the area.
Yeah, I wasn't really, I wasn't thinking of sidewalks per se, south of High Street. I was thinking of more like a walking path extension off the, whether it be 6 or 7 feet or whatever it would be, so people can walk along Lincoln Road.
Yep.
But again, it's only, it didn't get a lot of response. I just didn't want to I don't want to see sidewalks when you can have a walking path right next, as part of the road. Similar, I'm going out on Baseline Road, north of my house, which is not part of the DDA. There's a good chunk, you can ride your bikes and walk there, and there's a lot of traffic on Baseline, but someone thought far enough ahead to make that available. And there is no curb and gutter, it's just plain a big shoulder.
Yep, and big shoulders are the other alternative. So yes, and that's really the cheapest. That's what you see an awful lot of, is they just pave the shoulders and widen it out and make it into a bike lane. So, but
Jim, is the model you're referring to similar to what they did on Deerfield Road, with curb and gutter and then added the walking path that Rick is referring to?
Yes, and
Okay.
again, like
Now,
Rodney
is that
said,
something that could be done on from Broomfield going north then?
yes, but you have to fill, the problem is you have to do something with the ditch. So,
I'm talking about Broomfield, just in that area where they're talking about curb and gutter.
yeah, no, with that little area that they've got there, you know, you could put sidewalk right behind the curb in my mind.
Or maybe
There's
even a
enough room.
walking path like Rick is referring to, because then you could get people off the road and use it as a motorless pathway.
If you've got enough right of way, but by the time you put in I think with the 5 lanes, or yeah, I guess it just depends on how wide the road. But as Rodney said, is you start running out of road right of way.
Uh-huh.
So it's
But what
just a
you're
matter-
saying is that if you're going to do it, that's the time to do it.
Yes, if the county's going to put curb, and I'm assuming that's what I understand, is they're going to put curb down to and including the Broomfield Road intersection, that would be the time to put in whatever sidewalks or walking paths, whatever you want to, whatever they got room for.
Okay, thanks.
That actually brings up a good point related to the West EDA. You'll notice in the staff recommendation for fiscal years, most of these have a pretty broad range. The West EDA projects are not as well defined, and quite frankly, they tend to score lower on the priority list, as you can see. So numbers in the 3 and 4 out of 5, but it's certainly this is. On this side, on the West EDA side of your work, there's a good bit of room to do some more planning and identify more specifically the project priorities to work on. So some of these things like the sidewalk question, we may have some that we identify specific work to be done early, and other parts may come later, along Lincoln Road in particular. But your questions are excellent ones.
Probably one thing, and I don't see it right away going through that is, and I think it would be at the top, is the county already has obviously a project to go south of Lincoln down to Broomfield and improve the intersection there both ways on Broomfield. But one of the things in addition to the drainage is completing that gap between the bridge up to M20, making that 3-lane. So, and that, I don't know how I ever overlooked it on there, but that, I would like to add that to the list because I think that's a priority. I don't want to pay, I would prefer to partner with either the township board or the road commission and see what kind of funding they can and just help make matches rather than fund the whole thing. But I think that addresses a lot of the, if we improve that roadway from the bridge up to High Street, then you're gonna, the sidewalks in that area will be a lot easier to do, and it won't be something that if you put in a pathway right now and they, in 5 years, they widen that road, you're gonna tear the pathway up. So like I say, I don't know how I didn't, on mine, I didn't bring that up, but I would like to see that added to the list as try to help match to finish the road construction, the 3-lane road from the bridge up to M20.
The reason, Jim, that you don't see it, I should have included the current project list in your packet just for reference.
Okay.
But it's actually on the current project list.
Okay,
and it's noted as status. It's noted general agreement for the West EDA to be a funding partner, but not yet budgeted. Yep. But it is a current project item.
Okay, good. Nope, I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. But I think that'll take care of a lot of the road, the questions about the walkways. And I think as that road is being developed, because one of the challenges, and it's a challenge on M20, and we probably should reach out to the highway department to see what their 5 to 10 year plan is for M20, because I get the feeling that there's something in the works to widen that out or do something. To me, it looks like it's what you see is a lot of piecemeal improvements over the years, and so maybe that's where the curve is in front of the road commission, and that is where it's going to be the final product. But you really hate to put sidewalks and streetscaping in, and then 3 years from now, the highway department says, hey, we're going to widen it out, make it 5 lanes, or do some improvement, and end up tearing out what we just put in. So I guess I'd like to at least talk to the TSC and just see what their plans are and what's available for partnering with them to come up with a long-term outlook for the M20 corridor. And once that's established, then we can start looking at putting up street lighting and walk paths and that. So. But if we can get the roads built and improved first, the rest of it makes a lot more sense.
Thank you for that. Other thoughts on these projects?
Rodney, do you want to move on to the potential long-term projects, or are you thinking, is everybody done discussing this?
I'm happy to answer questions about those. This, just as with the East EDA, we did essentially group some projects under a separate table here, which is called long-term projects. These are items that most cases are going to take a good bit of coordination, activity to do, or a significant amount of planning. Or in some cases, they simply scored low on your priority list. And so they were, in this case, there are 8 projects here. Several of them overlap with the East EDA, like burial of overhead utility lines, a new public landmark or gathering space, branding and marketing activities, and property acquisition. These are all items that were the same on both sides. The utility burial of overhead utilities, you can see it was a very high score, but it's an item that will take a tremendous amount of effort. And I think Jim's comments earlier about road work are important here, because for the East DDA in particular, we know that they're planning on work in the M20 corridor. And so anything we might do in terms of trying to coordinate burial of overhead utility lines would need to fit with their plans as well. And so these are all kind of longer term items. I think if you're in agreement, they certainly have value to include on the list, but not as the most immediate priorities for funding and work. I think actually, going back to Jim's comments, item on page 32, the end of that long-term list, item number 7, you'll see streetscape improvements there. And it was actually Jim's comments in his response that moved this item into this category, because he was absolutely right that with the potential for major changes along the M20 Remus Road corridor there, it would be best to wait to do any streetscape work until that's more settled.
On the flip side of that too, I understand that and appreciate it. But at the same time, I remember when we were talking about burying utilities on the East DDA, and the cost was astronomical because of all the facilities that had been over the years installed. And with the lack of development in some ways and the potential for future development, if bringing up that idea, and I see it scored real high on the priority list, bearing of the utilities seems like a priority that might make some sense before too many things get developed.
For the West EDA, certainly.
Yeah, for the West EDA, I'm sorry, the West EDA, looking forward. And like I said, you know, Jim's comments are well taken as far as knowing what's going to happen and not wanting to get too far ahead of yourself. But at the same time, with the open runs that might be able to be accomplished, I don't know what the costs are. Nobody probably does, but I would think they'd be lower now than after more development is done.
That is
It's
correct.
true. I'm sorry, Jim, I think I jumped on your comment.
No, I did on that. Nope, I 100% concur with Marty. And again, as long as we move the utilities to the back of the right of way, because the reality is, and it'll be interesting to see what the final plans are, but when they do major, MDOT does a major corridor upgrade, their utilities have got to move their utilities out of the way for the new construction. So it may be an opportunity to partner with the utilities to do it ahead of time. So, but yes, it's something for further study. We're not going to make a decision tonight, but I think it has some appeal.
Well, that's a great point for long-term planning too, Jim.
Yep. But we probably need to make a point of sitting down with the highway department, and I'd be happy to be part of that. And just see just ask the question, what is their, 5 or 10 year, whatever their outlook is for that West 20 corridor and the West EDA. So, and if they're just going to continue on adding bits and pieces, then maybe what we want to do is fill the gaps and see if we can do a match and get some money to, finish the curb and gutter down through there and finish, some storm drainage or something like that. Maybe we got to push that with some matching funds. But I think it would be a productive conversation to let them know that we're a partner to that and we'd be willing for some matches is one of the hurdles that everybody has working with the highway department is first thing they're asking who's coming up with the match. And I'd much rather, as I've always said, pay 20% on a project than 100%.
Right. Absolutely.
So we need a motion?
Sure.
All right, get down to the bottom here. Make a motion to approve the list of planned economic development and public infrastructure improvement projects in the West DDA district for the funding during the 2021 to 2024 fiscal years as presented.
I'll second.
Who was the second? Sorry.
Point.
Coin. Motion by Zalad, support by Coin.
Late coin.
Any more questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. And the request for EDA board action motion is approved. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 10, director comments.
All right, thank you. I have a couple of items for you. One is related to the work currently going on at the interchange with US 127 and Pickard Road. I'm going to share my screen here. I know not everybody is on the screen, but for those that can see it, the state MDOT has been working on the overpass, US 127 overpass over Pickard Road. As part of that work, they had to take down the lighting that was underneath the overpass, and that lighting belonged to us. It was a group of 16 wall pack fixtures mounted high up on the bridge piers that lit up the roadway and also lit up the sidewalks that go under the bridges. Those wall packs were of ancient origin. They had been at some point or another been retrofitted with new lighting, but they were very elderly. When they took them down, some of them, they said some of them nearly crumbled in their hands. But the MDOT contractor did take them down carefully and stored them. He also took down the conduit. And as you can see from the work over there, they're currently working in those areas pretty heavily and will be for the next month or so. The question that came up is, do we want them put back up? And in reality, these fixtures are way beyond their design lifetime. They're not efficient, and as I said, they were not in good condition any longer. So what I've shared on my screen is the results of some discussion with the MDOT representatives and the contractor about a potential replacement fixture. The MDOT contractor is responsible for putting the conduit back up, restoring that service, and they would be responsible for putting back up our old fixtures if that's what we wanted. I don't recommend it, and as I said, we've been just discussing about other alternatives. If we chose to get new fixtures, we would be responsible for paying for the fixtures. So this fixture that I shared on the screen, it's by a company called Holophane, and it's a high efficiency LED full cutoff wall pack fixture. Is the fixture that was proposed as a potential replacement. This fixture is designed in such that we would actually only need 8 fixtures instead of 16 to actually light the area better than what was there before. So this would be proposed to as I said, to essentially have one of these fixtures on each side of each bridge pier, a total of 8 fixtures. We would be, as an EDA board, responsible for paying for the cost of to purchase the fixtures, and then the contractor would be responsible for putting everything back together and installing them. I'd hoped to have, in time for this meeting, a cost for you, so you could take an action or look at taking action to authorize something. The contractor hasn't given anything to me, so you can expect to see this on your next agenda to consider. And I know that they have concerns about timing. We may need to set up a special meeting even to just look at this one item. But at this point, I'm waiting for MDOT and their contractor to get back to me. So I just want to kind of give you the heads up that this is out here and a kind of a coming attraction.
Do you have any idea? I mean, boy, $1,000 a piece seems like would be a lot, I guess.
My expectation is in the maybe the 300 or 400 a piece. It's okay. I used to be in the lighting business. I used to do this kind of design work. I did it with fixtures that were metal halide and mercury vapor, and I don't have a handle on what LED costs. So I do know the Holophane is not a cheap brand at all. They're a very high quality brand. So my expectation is probably in the $300 or $400 range, but we'll just have to see.
And what if I would make a motion to give you the authority to authorize up to a dollar amount, not to exceed. And because I mean, timing is, and I don't have a problem having a special meeting, but I just, if it's $400 times 8 is, $3,200. And to me, we ought to be able to give you that much rope just to do it. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Or even 500 would sound pretty decent, because it sounds like a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer in my mind.
Well, so, if you're comfortable with that, I would suggest perhaps the $500 figure, so it'd be $4,000 total. If you're comfortable with making that motion to authorize the director and authorize me to pursue that, I certainly welcome the motion.
I'll make the motion. Can you and your staff draw it up? Or do you want me to try to put something together? Basically, yes, make a motion to authorize the director to negotiate with MDOT on the replacement of the 127 M20 overpass, light replacements for a total cost not to exceed $4,000.
Support. Support. Myers.
This is Tom. I know I just purchased some exterior uplights, like for the front walkway in the casino. I think those were $600 a piece.
You want to amend it to make it, let's see, if we go 8 times 800, $6,500.
You make it another $1,000, put it up to 6,000.
Yeah, I'd say,
I would.
Let's go, I amend my motion to do the not to exceed up to $6,500.
I amend my support.
Okay. Motion by Jim, support by Rick. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. And the motion's carried. Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you very much. I have one more item. I appreciate that motion and your confidence. We'll take it, we'll pursue it that way. The other item I have is this little piece of information that Sherry Teal put together and provided for me. During our last meeting, there was a discussion, a pretty heavy discussion about water bills. We had a $2,000 water bill for the East EDA, and there was concern that that water bill was excessive and was associated with water loss because of some damage that was done to one of the irrigation trunk lines. I asked Sherry to look at this, and she put together this history. So again, for those that can't see the screen, down at the bottom of the screen is the most recent bill. That was the one that was a concern last month, dated June of 2020. And it's a bill for water service totaling $1,979.20, just under $2,000. As I said, there was some concern about that being high. So Sherry pulled the numbers going back, and we've highlighted the same quarter for each of the years going back to 2015. Previous year bills are in the $3,000 to $4,500 range for that same quarter. So this year's bill was actually low compared to previous years in the same quarter. And so I just wanted to kind of share that with you as a follow-up to last month's discussion.
No, I appreciate that too. That's
Yep, thank you.
that helps a lot. It looks like we just didn't have a lot of water to spread, huh?
Looked like the irrigation system was shut off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that number really reflects the late start that COVID-19 caused for getting the irrigation system underway. So that is all I have. Thank you for your time on that.
Right. All right, good job.
Yes, thank you, Rodney. Very good job. Do we have anything else for tonight's meeting?
Yeah, this is Bacon here. I got just one little question I got to ask somebody. We kind of kicked pedestrian traffic on Pickard and Isabella off our priority list thing, but who would I talk to about a suggestion concerning the light?
I appreciate you bringing that up. I apologize.
Oh no, this is something we don't got to spend any money on or anything. It's not even really. They got the pedestrians crossing with left turn traffic, which is very dangerous compared to crossing with straight through a right hand.
I tell you what, if you would send me an email and write that down in your email, what you're seeing, I'll pass it on to the MDOT representative and they'll get it taken care of.
Okay. All right. I'll get that to you. It might be just snail mail, but I'll get something to you.
Yeah, if you want, just drop it off in the Dropbox here. At the
Yep,
Township
I will.
Hall.
Thank you. I just wondered who to contact.
That's perfect.
All right, thank you. That's all I had.
Can I make a comment?
Of course you can.
Okay, thank you. All right, I just noticed in this board packet, it says Board of Trustees goals addressed. And when I look at the list, number 1 is community well-being and common good. And then at the very bottom of the list is commerce. I feel like that should be more, we should be more pro-business. I understand that the well-being and the common good is important for our township, but we need commerce. We need pro-business, because without that, you know, actually with it, we have more tax dollars that are brought to the township. So that was just my comment. I didn't like seeing that number 6.
Mm-hmm.
Here, here.
Here, I agree.
Well, I appreciate the comment. What I will say is I don't think that those are in any kind of priority. Those are the 6 kind of general, what the board calls their global ends. This is what is important to them as an end result. But I don't believe that I don't think they're ranked. I think they're just,
Okay.
it just happens to be in that order.
Okay, it just looked like that. And so I just know that our community could suffer greatly even with COVID-19, because we depend a lot on the stainless steel business, which is refrigeration for restaurants. And right now, that is, the restaurant industry is suffering. So also our local plants are going to be suffering. And I just feel like we need to be working really hard on getting more business into Union Township. So when I saw that I just looked at that as a prioritization, and I just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I do know I hear all the time that we need to support economic development, of course, and that's why I'm here. And a lot of my work is trying to work in that area in particular, and also in my own inclination. Even though my training is as a professional land use planner, my first work in the field was actually in the economic development side, and so I try to infuse everything I do in this work that I do with the understanding that supporting economic development. So I deeply appreciate what you said.
Great, thank you, Rodney.
Hearing no more comments or questions, let's call the meeting adjourned. 5:58. And we look forward to hearing from everybody September 15th, next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you
Nice
very
job.
much.
Everybody stay safe.
Okay.